My name is Fischer. I'm an assistant professor at Oregon State University, and I was asked to speak about the role EERI has been playing over the last few earthquakes in coordinating a lot of the efforts for in-field reconnaissance and disseminating a lot of the information that comes out of the field. And I'm going to present that in the context of the Anchorage, Alaska earthquake. I'm the co-chair of the EERI Virtual Earthquake Reconnaissance Team. That's a subcommittee of the LFE LFE committee. I'm also a member of the LFE Executive Committee in EERI. So what I'm going to talk about kind of throughout the presentation, I'm going to first talk about the response of the engineering community and the role that EERI had in that response of the engineering community. And then I'm going to talk about two different tools that are and programs that are within EERI that really enhanced those responses and helped disseminate information out to the public, out to all of you through the EERI Clearinghouse and through their other methods. So for those of you who aren't aware, there was an earthquake on November 30th of last year in Anchorage, Alaska. There were significant amounts of aftershocks since, and they're still having aftershocks. And there was a very large response from the engineering community that was actually in Anchorage itself to go and look at the damage and see what exactly happened in this particular earthquake. And EERI played a number of different roles, and it's still playing a number of different roles. So the job's not done yet. But immediately after the earthquake, EERI launched their virtual earthquake clearinghouse. And for those who are not aware of their virtual earthquake clearinghouse, it's a really great way to funnel all this information into one place. So those of you who are going out into the field and collecting data, bringing it back and sharing it with the community so that everyone can build upon each other when they're going out into the field to do reconnaissance and to do research. But also for those of us who are just interested in what's happening and what's coming out of the field, I think we all know that it's sort of drinking from a fire hose right after an earthquake. And so this really allows us to go to one site and get a lot of that information and from reasonable sources. So EERI launched this clearinghouse for Alaska. They hosted regular clearinghouse phone calls, and so that meant that everyone who was in the field got on a phone call every single night for about a week, and then it tapered off to weekly phone calls. And everyone in the field, and then people who wanted to go into the field. So this allowed some logistical coordination, people who are in the field and wanted to share some information with people who wanted to come into the field, but also sharing information about what's been looked at, what hasn't been looked at, what the local response is from the municipalities, from the utility companies, and it's really great to get information directly from the source and from the field, and just coordinate amongst reconnaissance teams so that people aren't duplicating a lot of the efforts when they go out. EERI then also appointed 2 local reconnaissance leads. So as I mentioned, there was a large response from the Anchorage community, from the engineering community in Anchorage, and so EERI used their contacts to name 2 of those as leads. At the end of this month or beginning of next month, they'll be deploying their in-field team. And this team will be looking at business continuity, how the non-structural and structural damage impeded business continuity or affected business continuity. And they'll be doing that through their business resilience survey that they've developed over the last number of years. And EERI is going to continue to disseminate information over the next month or so. So there'll be a joint LFE report published next month. There'll also be a reconnaissance briefing webinar hosted next month, and then there'll be a session at the 2019 EERI annual meeting in March in Vancouver. So EERI, you can kind of see EERI played a number of roles, but it really did center around coordinating that in-field effort amongst all the reconnaissance teams and all the interested parties that were going out into the field, and helping to disseminate the information in a streamlined fashion. So the teams that went out into the field, and they're still deploying, there's still a number of teams that haven't deployed yet, were interested in a lot of the topics that I'm putting up on the screen right now. And they activated in a series over a series of weeks. So not everyone was out in the field at the same time. Some activated almost immediately. Some went out after a couple of days, and then some after a few weeks. And obviously EERI's team is going to deploy over the next month or so, and there'll be more teams that go out. And the results really centered around 3 themes. There was a lot of damage to roads and to engineered fills. A lot of non-structural damage in roads and hospitals. The school opening was delayed quite a bit due to that non-structural damage. And then there was significant damage to single-family homes, specifically to foundations. So as I kind of walk through the next parts of these presentation, it all kind of feeds into the same theme, that the EERI's role really was to coordinate all the teams that were going out into the field, get them talking to one another, sharing information and sharing goals and objectives so that they can meet those goals and objectives. And then also taking the information that's coming out of the field and out of the virtual earthquake reconnaissance and disseminating it out into the public, or into the public, EERI public. So the virtual earthquake reconnaissance team, which I've mentioned a few times, this is a group of about 150 engineers and scientists around the world that work together to provide virtual reconnaissance service to engineering and social science community. And the goal is to really improve data-driven reconnaissance, informed reconnaissance. Help teams be informed before they get into the field so that the time they spend in the field can be more productive. And so this looks like a number of things. So the products vary quite a lot, but our main roles are to really disseminate an immediate response report or phase 1 report, and that is disseminated about 48 hours after the earthquake. So it's quite quick turnaround, but the purpose of this is to provide information on a number of different topics to inform different agencies that want to go out into the field. What are the topics of interest that are kind of bubbling to the surface? What are the areas that are interesting that might be looked at in the field? And then should teams deploy or should teams not deploy? We've been assisting organizations in their reconnaissance. So some side research projects that we've been working on, and one in particular is with USGS that I'll highlight a little bit later. We've helped prepare teams for the field before they deploy, finding exact location of damaged buildings, of geotechnical damage, of things of interest for them so that they're, again, more informed when they get into the field so that they can do more data-driven reconnaissance. And then lastly, we collect a significant amount of data off of social media. And so we've been working with some scientists to work on comparing our results to what comes out of some social media data mining algorithms. So kind of looking at what's being developed on the computer science side for humanitarian efforts using social media, and then comparing that with what we're collecting with a very focused engineering discipline. So this is sort of the structure of how this all fits into EERI. So the Virtual Earthquake Reconnaissance Team is a subcommittee of the EERI Learning from Earthquakes Committee, and it consists of early career academics, professionals, and a lot of graduate students. So many of you in the room, we have been using your graduate students a lot, and we thank you for sharing them with us. What it does is that it trains the next generation of reconnaissance engineers. It teaches these engineers what is reconnaissance. What does it mean to be in the field or to look at a damaged community over a number of different topics? What would a reconnaissance team actually be interested in looking at? What are some questions they'd be interested in? And all this training is really helpful for when these particular individuals want to go into the field. They're a little bit more informed, and they know what to look for, they know what reconnaissance is, and all these things are only going to make their careers better. So we activate in a number of different phases, and it really can be grouped into 3 different categories. So we'll activate before, during, and after in-field deployment. So before in-field deployment, really we're collecting a lot of information to inform reconnaissance teams on goals and objectives. There's a lot of information that comes out of the field immediately after these events, and so our members are really able to sift through all that information and pull out the meaningful information that's coming out of municipalities, out of DOTs, out of emergency response agencies. And that information can inform, again, goals and objectives of the reconnaissance team. As teams are in the field, we assist them virtually. So for those of us who've done reconnaissance, we know they're really long days. We're out in the field, we're collecting data, then we're post-processing in the evenings and well into the night. Having a virtual arm to help us research additional topics that we run into while we're in the field is really helpful to inform the next day's reconnaissance. And so we can do that for a number of different teams during their deployment. And then looking out long term, right now for Mexico City, we're looking at a 1 year and a half report. So we're looking at what were the goals and objectives of a lot of the reconnaissance teams that were deployed to Mexico City. What were some of the knowledge gaps or the issues that arose from those reconnaissance teams, and where's Mexico City now? So we heard a lot how you have to act fast, right, after an event and kind of really take advantage of the momentum of the public. And so a lot of that change could happen within that year. So looking at policy changes in the region, looking at engineering code changes in the region, how are these communities actually recovering if they have started recovering a year and a half out? And we can do all of that through our virtual methods, and then write a report and summarize it with the reconnaissance data that's come out of the field. All of our information and all of these documents are published through the LFE Clearinghouse and through DesignSafe. So we really are trying to push this information out to all of you so that you can use it and in the best way possible. So if we talk about Anchorage specifically, phase 1 was activated on November 30th on the afternoon of the day of the earthquake, and by that Monday we published our phase 1 report. Okay, so this is on DesignSafe, so y'all can look it up. And we were able to summarize the following topics. So we really dived in and looked at what happened with these topics. Was there anything of interest for a reconnaissance team? And what were some questions that a reconnaissance team might want to answer if they were in the field? We use a lot of social media, as I mentioned before, and we do that so that we can kind of track the recovery. So as lifelines are damaged, municipalities use Twitter to communicate with the public a lot about when certain utilities are repaired, and we can track that and look at the repair times. We can look at how quickly these regions are recovering through the social media. And so our phase 1 report was actually included as an appendix in the STEER immediate response report, and the 2 reports complemented each other really well. So we provided a very high-level overview of the topics I showed before. STEER did a really great job in comparing the damage of 1964 to 2018, and also dove in quite deeply into the ground motions. And so the 2 reports complemented each other quite well, and you can look at the joint STEER EERI report that's published on DesignSafe. And so that's just the phase 1 of how we first activated after the Alaska earthquake. So within 48 hours, we're able to push out a report summarizing a lot of information, a lot of different topics. And from that report, you're able to kind of glean what happened in this area at a high level. Where were the points of interest? What happened with housing? What happened with non-structural damage and roads, et cetera. As we move forward and activate subsequent phases, we're able to dive a little bit deeper and just be more specific in our goals. And so we activated a phase 2 response to help USGS. They wanted to know how people actually responded to the earthquake. Did they drop, cover, and hold? How effective is the shake alert? How effective is the shakeout? And so we were able to help them find that through Twitter posts of people actually responding to the earthquake. I mentioned before we're helping the EERI team deploy for their particular event. And so we were able to do that by finding over 40 different businesses that were damaged in an earthquake. We're able to find the exact business location, type, name of business, website, and from that information they can then strategically plan their reconnaissance trip and make sure they're taking a representative sample of businesses within Anchorage in order to do their business resilience survey. And then ongoing, as I mentioned before, we do use Twitter quite a bit. We pull Twitter information directly from municipalities or emergency response agencies. We don't take Twitter information from individual users, just based on the biases that could arise from that. So we're comparing what we pull from Twitter and the information that we're able to take out of social media to some social media data mining efforts that have been going on, some data mining algorithms. So the EERI has been coordinating a lot of the efforts that are in the field. They've been coordinating all the teams, getting them to talk to one another about their goals and objectives, the information that's coming out of the field, and then helping disseminate that information through the EERI Clearinghouse and helping and through the VERT documents that we've been developing. And we've been helping, VERT documents have also been helping a lot of the teams that are going into the field. And so the last topic that I'm going to talk about is the data collection methodologies that EERI has. And these really are there's two of them. They both feed right into the EERI Clearinghouse photo gallery and data map. The first being when a team comes back from the field, they can take all of their geotagged photos and they can just upload them directly to the photo gallery. And the second is a Fulcrum data collection app. So this app is a form-based app, so the user gets to make up their own form, and this allows them to then collect the same data at every single site. The forms are able to be saved, so then when there's a subsequent event, they can collect the same data in every single event. So it, again, just pushes more data-driven reconnaissance. And more importantly, this can be collected offline, since we don't always have internet in the field. So I'll actually do a live demo of this, but this is what this looks like. So you can use it from your smartphone, you can use it from your iPad, and so you sign in. You can actually use this username and password to play around with it, if you'd like. And you can add a new record. You can look at all the forms that are there. And what this looks like is you enter your own information, and all of this information will then show up with the photos on the EERI virtual clearinghouse. So you put in all of your information, and then you put in the information that you're collecting at the actual site. So when someone clicks on the photo on the virtual clearinghouse, they see a lot of information down here. It's geotagged, and it provides context for the person who's using these photos. Okay, so it allows less people who maybe don't have the means to go out into the field to really get that information and be able to use it for research. Okay, so again, here's the username and password to play around with it. Don't play around too much this afternoon. And so I just wanted to show you what this looks like. So when you sign in, this is what you're going to see. And if you want to use one of the forms. All right, so this was at the Reconnaissance workshop back in November. So there's a lot of forms showing up. So for each form, you're going to see all the responses. All right, and so if we looked at one of them in particular, right? So we see where this is actually located. We see some other dots here. That's where the form has been used in other locations. And we see who entered this information. Thank you, Philip. And you can see the description of what's happening. So you can actually write what was damaged, what you're seeing is damaged. And that helps people when they're looking at these photos, if they're looking for all of, the presentations that we've seen today on machine learning, if they're looking for exactly what was damaged and can they benchmark their algorithms, this really helps them being able to do that, of having that exact information correlated with the photo itself. And then you can see the photos are linked directly to the form itself. And so if you wanted to make a new form, you press the plus. And I have to enter my information. You enter your email. Sorry. And you're able to then enter all this information yourself. Okay, so you can pick a quick form or a detailed form, and this just again allows all this information to be transferred to the Clearinghouse. So this is what the Clearinghouse actually looks like. There's a lot of information. I definitely recommend visiting. And so here is the photo gallery. So you can see the map. You can see where the photo itself is actually taken, and then all of the information that is associated with that photo itself. So you know exactly who took the photo. If they made any comments on the photo, you can see that. And that just, again, helps with the dissemination of the information that's coming out of the field very rapidly, and so that the next teams that are going into the field can be a bit more informed. So, for those of you who want to spend the afternoon playing around on Fulcrum, here is the username and password that EERI that shares. But remember, if you are actually going to use this for field reconnaissance, you should use your own email so that it's linked up on the photos. And if you have any questions on anything that I've talked about today, feel free to contact any of these people up here. Zoe is actually here in the audience if you'd like to ask any questions. And thank you very much.